If you're living in the DMV and your house is collecting dust while your neighbor's sold in 1 week and you're wondering what the hell is going on, this is the perfect video for you. If we haven't met before, my name is Kevin Grolig. I'm a lifelong native of Montgomery County, Maryland. I've raised 4 kids here and I've been a full-time, high-producing real estate agent for nearly 40 years. And the one thing I can tell you that early 2026, everything's changing and everything is different. And the sellers who don't understand that are getting crushed. The pandemic sellers market that we saw in 2020 through 2024 is dead. In 2021, you had a ho-hum house and you overpriced it by 10%, you'd still get offers. Sometimes, many of them even well over list price. In 2026, overpriced by 3 to 5% and buyers scroll right by. Currently, the DC metro inventory is up 33%. That's 9,100 listings today that weren't here the same time last year. On the flip side, contract activity is down, and some of the reasons for that is federal uncertainty. There's the war in Iran. Interest rates just recently spiked up to 6.5%, where they were down below 6% for the first time since 2023. Guess what? They're back up. Gas prices going up, food prices going up. All of that does not help sellers when they're going to sell their homes because it erodes at consumer confidence, and of course it starts eating away at affordability. What I'm finding is most home buyers aren't in a rush right now. Interest rates have gone up, which makes things less affordable, and they're seeing more homes going on the market, especially as we get into the spring market, and they're saying, hey, what's the rush? I want to wait for the perfect property. So the market that you think you're selling in doesn't exist. 100% of the homes that don't sell have one problem, and that's price. Now, over the years, I've heard so many people give me all sorts of reasons and excuses why the home's not selling, and of course, it isn't the price. I've heard things like, yeah, but Kevin, it backs to power lines, or it faces a busy road, or it's a little dated, it's a little this, it's a little that, or Kevin, you're not marketing it hard enough. I've heard all the excuses, but the bottom line is the right price cures all ill. Pricing it high to leave room for negotiation is a killer. Overpriced homes don't show up on searches, and homes that are on the market now 10 to 15 days start to become stale, and people start to think, what's wrong with this house? After 30 days, you're stigmatized and negotiating from a point of weakness. And hell, after 60 days, all buyers just assume that your house is infested with poltergeists. In the end, overpriced homes sell for less than those priced correctly. Now, let me give you a real example of a seller and agent that I kind of watched from a distance as they tried to sell a home that was overpriced. The property was listed for $775,000 and frankly should have been really somewhere between $700 and $725 tops. The property sat for 120 days, 3 price cuts, and ultimately sold at $687. The house was allowed to sit, get stale, and then get stigmatized, and ultimately the house sold for probably $25,000 to $35,000 less than it should, and that doesn't even cover all the carrying costs involved with carrying that property for 120 days and the sleepless nights and the anxiety that the home seller lived with. In today's market, most buyers are extremely savvy. They know what other homes in your neighborhood have sold for, and they also know the condition and compare those homes to your home. And what I find, and this is really quite sad, is many of the home buyers out there know more and are smarter and more savvy than the home seller themselves, and oftentimes their dim-witted agent that they've hired who's maybe sold 1 or 2 homes in the last 5 years. The moral of this story is price right from the beginning. We're still dealing with a market where if you price it right and it's in good condition, there's still a possibility that you may get multiple offers and the home still gets bid up. Now, that doesn't happen all the time like it did back in the pandemic years, but there's still a good possibility if you strategize, price right, and do things right from the beginning. While pricing is still and always will be the #1 factor in selling your home, there's another one out there too that I just alluded to, and that's the condition. 2026 buyers will not pay a premium for outdated homes. The majority of the home buyers purchasing today are millennials and older Gen Zs, and these generations are much different than the generations before. They shop differently, and heck, I think we all know why. they were raised on iPhones and Amazon, so they expect instant gratification. They're also, when it comes to homes, they're looking for turnkey, and they're willing to pay a premium to get it. 83% of today's home buyers say that the photos are the most important feature. So guess what? Bad photos, bad house equals instant skip. Landscaping, fresh paint, spruce up, and staging all matter. Today, you're competing with more than just the homes in your neighborhood. You're also competing with other neighborhoods close by, other towns, and in some cases, other counties and other states. Here's the last thing I'm gonna say about condition. I've seen plenty of homes over the years that actually online looked great. Great online experience, nice photos, wide angles, everything like that, only to show up at the property and the in-person experience didn't even come close to matching the online experience. You see fuzzy edges, cigarette smells in some, maybe cat urine in the others, the things that you're not going to see online. So what is very important is that you present a great online experience, and that in-person experience needs to match or exceed what they see online. Now, I've also seen the opposite, where there's been some really great homes, and unfortunately, either the agent was too cheap or something, and they ended up taking their photos with like an iPhone 3 or something like that, shot through gauze, and they look terrible. And so you're not giving a great online experience, which ultimately means that the buyers just skip and move on to the next place, and a great house was never found and completely disappeared in the searches. It's this simple. If your house doesn't photograph well, it doesn't exist. So far, this video has been all doom and gloom, but here's the good news. Homes are selling, but only the right ones. Well-priced, well-conditioned, and well-marketed homes in Montgomery County are still selling in many cases in 3 to 5 days, and as I alluded to before, in some cases still with multiple offers, and sometimes we are still seeing the homes sell above list price. And if your agent is not pre-marketing your home ahead of time and giving you the strategy before you actually go on the market, where potentially you can test the market with a higher sales price, then you're getting shortchanged. So make sure that your agent does pre-market your home and ask him or her about their strategy before you sign on the dotted line. I think of pre-marketing a little bit like a movie trailer. Big hit movie like Forrest Gump or Star Wars doesn't just show up in the movie theaters and, hey, we're here. No, there's a lot of pre-marketing that goes into it. Movie trailers, things like that. Now, of course, it'd be advertised on social media as well as national TV. Your home should be no different than that. Pre-marketing ahead of time to let people know, hey, this property is coming to the market is a must to build demand and to build momentum going into market launch. Okay, so I nailed down the point that pricing right from the beginning is imperative, but also what's probably imperative is that you hire an agent who gives you a market evaluation, and this agent has really taken a deep dive and shows you and illustrates to you how your home compares with those that are currently on the market around your neighborhood, as well as those that are currently pending, and of course those that have recently sold. And I define recently sold as probably going back no further than 6 months. But you need to take a good hard look and say, okay, how does my home compare to these homes? And what, if anything, can I do to maximize the value and prepare my home for sale so that I can get top dollar when it goes on the market for sale and I sell it quick? Professional photography, professional videography, as well as newly drafted floor plans are imperative. The market rewards precision, not optimism. So with all that being said, let me give you 2 real-life examples of homes that I've recently sold in 2026. First, we're going to take this property at 17800 Bromfield Place. I sold this home on a Sunday in January during a freaking blizzard. It was 3 days on the market, 5 offers received, final sales price $43,000 over asking. And what made it work? What made it work was the right strategy from the beginning. Now, these were original homeowners in the house who are now empty nesters. They'd been in the home 30 years, and the house was just filled with all sorts of stuff, just way too much stuff. Of course, kids didn't want it. Nobody wanted the stuff. So we identified right up front that, of course, they were going to start looking to downsize. And so we needed to get them moved out of the house, move their things out of the house. So we got all that accomplished. Believe me, that's a video on its own, but we won't go there. But we got them moved out of the house. We got the home professionally painted. We got flooring redone. We replaced some light fixtures, things like that, and did some light staging. You know, pre-marketed it ahead of time to build up interest in it. Had it on the market 3 days. We got 5 offers on it. Sold it for $43,000 above list price. Sellers are super excited. And guess what? They've moved on to the next chapter. Success story number 2. Now, this is a little bit of a different situation. This is a home in Rockville, an older home, built, I want to say it was 1959. And I got to tell you, there really weren't any updates in that property. I think we had an original 1959, Leave It to Beaver, kitchen, baths, things like that. Now, the bones of the home were good. I mean, the owner took good care of it as far as the roof was relatively new. There was no leaking, there was no mold, but once again, not an upgrade within 3 blocks of this property. And of course, as I said, most home buyers today, the millennials, are looking for that more turnkey condition. There were some neighborhood flippers who found out that this property was going to go on the market and was willing to offer the family somewhere in the neighborhood of $475 to $500. They asked me if they thought that that was a good deal, and I said, absolutely not. So let's talk a little bit about what we did there. When analyzing the situation with this house, first of all, time was the essence for the seller to sell it. They really needed a quick sale. They didn't have the time to do a ton of renovations on this. And frankly, had we started to look at remodeling the kitchen, remodeling the baths, ripping out flooring, doing all those type of things, we probably would have invested over $100,000, and we simply wouldn't have gotten a return. And it would have also taken 3 or 4 months, which the seller didn't have. In this case, we isolated 3 or 4 things to do, which really were the meat and potato things that you would do when putting a property on the market. Had the front landscape to give it that curb appeal. We had a professional paint job throughout. So once again, the online experience that people would see was at least they could see it's a fresh home. We didn't hide away from the fact that the kitchen was old and the bathrooms were old. We showed those photos. We needed those people to see that. Once again, we want to manage expectations. Ultimately, in the end, what we did is when we put the property on the market, we put it on for $575, and within 3 days, we had a cash buyer who gave us $580. They could have taken the easy road out and sold it maybe a month earlier for $475, $500, maybe $510. But a little bit of effort that we put into it, we put probably $7,000 of work into the property between landscaping, painting, and a really good deep cleaning. Spent about $7,000, $7,500, and ultimately they sold it a month later, but for $580,000. That's about $80,000 more that stays in the pocket of the family when they're selling it. So there's not a one-size-fits-all strategy when preparing your home. Some homes we go a little bit deeper on, some homes we go a little bit not so deep on, and a lot of times that's really determined by the house itself, also by the timing of the seller and what their bandwidth is as far as their willingness to invest time and money into the property. So here's the bottom line in 2026. The market has changed. It's not the same market that your neighbor experienced in the pandemic years of 2020 through, I'd say, as late as 2024. Heck, it's probably not the market that your neighbor sold for in 2025 either. So it's definitely different right now. And the thing is, today you've actually got to compete against competition, whereas in those markets, not so much. If you're watching this video and you're thinking about selling your home in the near future, I would love the opportunity to talk to you about it. You can always feel free to text me, or you can simply scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to a Calendly link where you can actually set a direct appointment with me where we can discuss just about anything about your situation in selling your home. Thank you for sticking with me once again. Appreciate you. If there's anything I can do for you, hit me up, and I will see you next week.